I like this from Lenny, things that resonate with my strongest political convictions. So in other words, it's just reinforcing something. And from Rebecca, outrageous claims too good to be true. I think that's also very, very true. So that's good for the second question. And what new triggers might this episode have suggested that you hadn't thought about? Go ahead, Liz.
I guess if the point of the article is trying to get me to do something, I mean, whether it's donate money or call my legislators or whatever. So I know they're not just trying to entertain me, they're trying to accomplish something else, then it would suggest double check that you're not being taken in by someone who's hiding the real source.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And digging deeper is good. I think Wikipedia, episode 5 is all about Wikipedia. And one of the things next week I will have this link for you, but there's a wonderful interview with the person who started Wikipedia on the On Being program. They interviewed him about 6 or 7 years ago. And it's really interesting. I didn't know how it started, and how he got there was so interesting. He was just fascinated with encyclopedias. And then he was thrilled about the internet, and he put those two things together. Anything else that you caught from the video before I go on to like another topic, but things that you want to point out or that you could point out to other people? What about when you're watching television? This is something they didn't point out, but this is something I have a question on. Let's say you're watching television, you're watching something. How often do you go when you hear something asserted on not on a news program or a commentary program? How often do you go and check those assertions? As frequently as you do on the internet or not? Okay, we got a lot of people like me. I don't watch TV. So people who don't watch TV, and then some people are saying mostly no. And so when I did watch TV, I did do that. And in fact, when I now listen to podcasts, or I will watch, say, congressional hearings or other people, I do them with my little computer in hand and I check them. Because one of the things that happens is, especially if you're listening to the radio or we have the TV on for background company stuff, a lot of times we have we're absorbing passively information and we don't really know that that's happening. Yeah, and multiple sources is really good. So next episode that we are going to be talking about is trusted sources. And one of the trusted sources that that I use is called Media Bias Fact Check. And one of the pieces of homework for you guys for next week is to let us know what are some of the sources that you trust, because we're going to be collecting a list next time. But Media Bias Fact Check is checking the source of the news, not usually the content of the news. And so I'm going to share my screen for a minute. So Media Bias Fact Check, and maybe you guys have all used it, in which case I don't need to show it to you, but hang on, is a nonprofit institution that has a methodology to check news sources. And we're going to take a look at what they have to say about Reuters, because Reuters is one of the least biased news sources. And a news source can be biased and still be quite factual. You just have to be able to accommodate the bias for them. So this is the interface. And it's quite busy. It's a very busy website. And because it's nonprofit, they use ads frequently. But I put Reuters here in the search field, and we're going to say Reuters. And hopefully it will. There we go. And what happens then is it'll say it's a least biased source. They have lists in here of most biased by left versus right. They also have lists of controversial websites, hoax websites. So it can be quite helpful if you see a source that you've not seen before. If I want to know about Reuters, then I get a chart like this. It tells me that it's least biased, and there is a methodology. There's going to be a link as part of that in the notes that come. And then it goes on for a detailed report. The factual reporting is very high. This has a number of ways that they get to this, but one of them is how many fact checks they failed. It talks about what country it comes from, who funds it, who owns it, an analysis of their bias, and what kind of emotional language they use. And here it says a factual source reveals that Reuters has an excellent track record. So in addition to thinking about and bringing back next time those things, those news sources that you trust, I invite you to also do the following, which is to take those news sources and put them into Media Bias Fact Check and see what Media Bias Fact Check thinks about them. Because it can be quite surprising and the reasons can be interesting. And that, again, doesn't mean they explain why they do those different ways to do that. So does anybody have any questions before we get wrapped up here? I know this is a lot of information, but you guys all, it was clear last week that all of you know how to do lateral reading, even if you didn't know the term. But the invitation that John is making and that I'm making is that we do more of it. And not only that, that we share that we do more of it. So a lot of times if I have fact checked something, if I post something, say something I found is correct, I will often at the beginning of my post say, this is a news article. I fact checked the source and the date is here. So I will do a little addition to the post. Maybe I'm posting something that's an analysis and I say that analysis is there. So I explain to people what kind of post it is. This is entertainment, or this is a sarcastic article, so that people know what I'm posting, so that I become a trusted media source. So next time we're going to talk about deciding who to trust. And one of the things that I want to point out is that Charlie has found a wonderful way of having these takeaways that we're having for each session on one little graphic, which are now going to be posted. So if you want to start sharing this information in your circle of influence, you will be part of helping to fight misinformation and disinformation. And I wanted to also say thank you to, we're going to have this on the YouTube channel. People can watch that again. We'll be sending you an email with all the links from what we're doing today, including an invitation for next week. And we'll be talking about it on our blog, on our website, and invite you to extend the conversation on our Facebook page. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today.